All right. I think we are going. Hawkeye episode 4, fresh out of it. Gonna spoil the whole thing for everybody watching. If everybody was like me and got up at midnight so they could watch this thing, it's actually 1 o'clock where I am. It's 2 o'clock now. Um, before I get into the spoilers and all that, well, I just get some things going real quick here. I'll just start by saying this was more of kind of a filler episode. It really worked as just for the purposes of getting us from point A to point B. It was only a half hour long, so on the shorter side when we're talking about these episodes. I think the past other ones have been at least 45 minutes or something like that. That's not that big of a deal. But yeah, that's you saw the title of the video, you clicked on it, so hopefully you know. Spoiler alert, Wilson Fisk doesn't show up, but Yelena does at the end, which I noticed on Twitter right before I got on here that a lot of people were talking about that, and I didn't find that surprising, or I mean, it was cool to see, but for me, that wasn't some kind of big crazy reveal. But before I get into the specifics on that, I guess I'll just break down the episode from the beginning, and then I'll give my thoughts on the series overall, because I haven't really talked about it. And yes, this is a movie channel, but Hawkeye is a movie character, and so even though he's in TV now, I still want to talk about him, especially because he's one of my favorite characters. And Jeremy Renner, though Hawkeye might not have been my favorite Avenger in all the movies, Jeremy Renner is my favorite actor of the Avengers. I think I can say that. Absolutely love that dude. Talented musician too. A lot of people don't know that, but all right. So the episode starts off right where the last one ended up, and I wrote some shit down just so I can make sure that I get through it all. So right where we left off, they were looking on they went to Kate Bishop's mom's house so that they could get into the Bishop security servers and run the names through their database of Kazi and all the other tracksuit guys. That was the main one they got to. Lalo comes in and puts a sword, ironically the Ronin sword that he stole from the black market auction at the beginning of the series. He puts that to Hawkeye's neck and all this, and he might be the swordsman. I'm not too familiar with the comics. I think that's what a lot of people are speculating and saying online. So I don't know if that's, I think from what I've heard, that's a good guy. He's not an evil character. But anyways, the confrontation was simply because these guys snuck into the house and nobody knew they were there. It wasn't like he was out to get Hawkeye. He wasn't hunting Hawkeye or anything the way that end frame might have made it seem, because I think the last words were "don't move," and Hawkeye had a sword to his throat. This picks up right at that moment. I think he says, like, "What are you doing here?" or something to that effect, and the mom chimes in and goes, "What's going on?" You know, freaks out, and then they realize it's Hawkeye, and they're just like, "Wait, why is there an Avenger in my living room?" And Lalo's like, "Oh, you're Archer," calls him the wrong name. That was kind of funny. Then they sit down at the table. Sorry, that's loud. That might fuck up the noise on this one. If you can hear that, I do apologize. I don't know if it's getting picked up or not. But so they sit down at the table and they try to explain to Lalo and Mom what's going on, being very vague about it. Hawkeye's basically just like, "She's helping me out with some stuff." Kate's more like, "Oh, we're on a mission together. We're working together." And Mom's really just kind of like, "Really? Okay." Well, then they ask Hawkeye to leave, and Mom walks him out. And at this point, we all know Mom's up to some crazy shit, like probably killed Dad, and just seems like kind of a cunty character that nobody really likes. Nonetheless, and so he might not have taken it as a threat because he doesn't really know much about her character. Their focus right now is on Jack, or the guy I call Lalo, because was his character's name in Better Call Saul, Tony Dalton. and the Tracksuit Mafia and some of these other characters, they're not really focusing on the mom at this point, even though it's going to be revealed that she's into some shady shit too that just hasn't come up yet. So she vaguely threatens him and says, leave my daughter out of this, but like very passive aggressively, like it didn't come across to Hawkeye as anything other than a mother looking out for her kid kind of thing. But if you know the cuntiness of that character, which we've seen over a couple episodes now, we know to be a little concerned that she basically vaguely threatened Hawkeye, but he didn't even take it that way, so that might be nothing, definitely reading into that. One thing about that scene that I thought was funny was when they're explaining why they're working together, but being very vague about the terms and everything like that. The mom goes, my daughter's helping with an Avengers-level threat. And I just love that that term exists in this universe, that's how they scale certain events and disasters. I loved hearing it in Far From Home. And once again, it was Jesus Christ, it was used here too. It's 2 a.m, if I didn't already say that. Not that that's an excuse, because this is the first stream I've done today, but after that, Hawkeye texts his wife and says, hey, can you look up, it was Sloan, the Sloan Security or something like that. That's what came up on the computer with the Bishop Security database last time they were on the computer, like I said, at the end of that episode before Lalo came in and put the sword to his neck. They found that that Kazai guy that they were looking up was listed under Sloan Securities or something like that. So he texts his wife, which is cool because she's actually involved now, and I guess we don't really have any other Avengers that he can just text. We don't have a Ned, a guy in the chair that they text, so he has his wife look up this company for me. She texts back and says that Sloan Securities is a front for the Tracksuit Mafia, which the CEO of that company, which is a fake company, turns out to be Jack. So they were right about that guy being crazy. But what was cool about that scene, Hawkeye's wife helping him out, was that they're kind of talking in coded messaging, but then she straight up goes into a foreign language to ask him, I think it's Russian, but I don't know. She uses a different language to ask him, was anything else stolen from the Avengers compound? Because they know all this shit's out there now, because that's what started this whole thing, was the black market auction. And she says, what about the Rolex? And so that explains it doesn't explain it, but it gives us a little more context. On the beginning, when the Tracksuit Mafia does come in and raid the auction there, they're looking for a watch. But we don't know if they get it or not. I don't think it was ever actually shown that they had retrieved that. But in the last episode, I think it was, Hawkeye asked her, was there any other Avengers shit there? Like, what else did they take? Like, they had no idea that this watch was on the table. But now that they know shit's floating around out there, his wife is concerned, like, hey, is it possible that this Rolex, this watch, was at that auction? And he's like, I don't know, but it should have a GPS in it. So she tracks it, and they actually do find an address, and so that'll play. That's the next part of their mission is, all right, we got to go get this watch. But before that, she has to stay there, talk to her mom, and so he goes back to the apartment by himself. I think they're staying at her aunt's or something, and he's beat up. He's getting old at this point, so he's using like frozen daiquiris and shit as ice packs. And then he's still bummed because he's not getting to come home now still, because he has to keep dealing with this shit, although I do think he'll be home by Christmas. I think that's where this is going. Sorry, fucking vices. Like I said, I think that's where this is going, but he'll be home for Christmas. One other thing funny that I just mentioned here is a funny line from Lalo where the mom's talking to him, and she's like, wow, you know, Hawkeye was her hero growing up. That's the one she loved. That was her favorite and everything like that. And Lalo goes, man, I can't imagine, you know, meeting Huey Lewis, which is funny and makes me lean towards more that this guy might not be any kind of super nefarious character. He might just be, he's a weirdo who likes swords. Maybe they've been setting that up this whole time just because there are eccentric people like that out there in the world, even though he has been really sketchy and suspect, I think, just in his kind of creepiness and eeriness about him when he talks to Kate and everything like that. And she clearly doesn't like him, but he could end up being, who is it? Bobby, the mom's husband or the mom's new boyfriend or whatever, the cop guy in Ant-Man, where just because he's the character, just because he's involved with somebody, we shouldn't like him, even though he might not have anything going on. They might be trying to spin that whole thing. That doesn't make any sense, but like I said, I'm running on fumes here. But anyways, while Hawkeye goes back to the apartment, the mom asks if she can help plan a birthday, or not a birthday party, a Christmas party for the office. And they talk about dancing and stuff. Let's see what else here. So she goes back to the apartment with Hawkeye, and this was a cool moment because she said, look, I know that you don't get to be home with your kids right now and you're missing out on all this holiday shit, but I want to try to make things a little better for you. So we're going to do the movie marathon. We're going to wear ugly Christmas sweaters, and, even though I'm not your kid, and we're going to drink, too. That was a funny part of it. I'm going to try to make up for it a little bit because you're, helping me out with this shit. But meanwhile, they're still trying to formulate a plan on how to tackle down these other leads. So she, draws on a picture frame at one point. Okay, so we got to get the cops off her back because the cops are still looking for her at this point. We got to get rid of the tracksuit mafia, and it's like a diagram. And she just drew it on this picture in the living room, and Hawkeye just goes, wait, are you sure that's dry erase? And it wasn't, so that was a funny moment. Like I said, there was some big moments in this episode, but I still thought the episode of a whole was just kind of filler. And so all this part comes into it. A big portion of the episode is them just sitting in this apartment, not even really formulating the plan, but just kind of BSing. They talked about archery. He showed her a couple of tricks and everything like that. Then, let's see, what else did I write here? Then, they're talking, they're bullshitting about archery. And then the tone kind of shifts because she asks him what's the best shot that he ever took. And he says, oh, it's a shot that I didn't take. And she said, what do you mean by that? And then the tone shifted, and he's like, never mind, don't want to talk about it anymore. Then she figures out, oh, okay, he must be talking about Natasha. And so he asks her, or she asks him that, and he was like, yeah, I could tell that she just wanted out. I didn't feel it necessary to kill her and that kind of thing. And then they start talking about family, and she said, oh, you must have lost your family in the blip. And then she goes, oh, that must have been horrible, I can't imagine. So that leads you to believe that she did get blipped. I don't know if that had been popped up before or not, but then as this conversation goes on, she says, was it during the blip that you met Ronan? And I think he says yes, but he's trying to back out of this conversation, kind of. Like I said, the tone has shifted to more serious, where they've just been goofing around and, BSing for however long, having basically a mini Christmas party. She figures out, she says, wait, you're Ronan, aren't you? And I thought she was going to get all mad at him and everything like that, and she doesn't. She basically defends him and says, look, you had to do what you had to do. He keeps telling her, I'm not a hero, I'm just a weapon. I'm meant to kill people. That's all. That's been my main job, is killing people. Sometimes the people that use me point me in the right direction, but during the blip, he was pointing himself, and he was just going crazy, killing everybody. But it doesn't turn her off of him. She keeps saying, no, you were a hero. So she's very forgiving of the fact that he massacred hundreds of people probably. And, it's totally forgivable because it's not like they were innocent people that he killed. And then after that scene, when she goes to bed, he's laying in bed. He has a flashback, which is really cool because, like I said, I think the first 2 episodes, definitely the first one, and I can't remember if it was 3 or 2, but began with flashbacks, character setup for the characters that aren't Hawkeye. It wasn't at the beginning of the episode this time, but we did get another brief flashback, and it was Hawkeye's as he's going to bed, having just had all these thoughts brought up during that conversation. Sorry. He flashes back to reuniting with his family after they came back from the blip. He's also, it's like a montage sequence. It's also showing, when Black Widow dies. It's showing him as Ronin killing everybody. So everything's coming back up to the surface. Then the next day, they come up with a plan. He says, all right, first, look, I need my arrows. He says, what does he say? He said, he needed his arrows, and then they needed to go talk to Kazi. And so they were going to split up and take care of these tasks. He had tracers on his arrows, so he knew that the police had them. And so he sends her to go link up with the LARPers that he met in episode 2, I think it was, because one of them was a cop, and they were emergency personnel, and says, they can help you get my stuff out of evidence. Because that's where it is right now, presumably after the car chase or whenever. I can't remember when his arrows would have ended up in evidence, but they were able to trace them and figure out that that's where they are. Meanwhile, he goes and does the old horror movie serial killer thing where Kazi, I don't know, I can't remember the fucking guy's name, the boyfriend or the number 2 of Maya. He gets in his truck like he's leaving work or something, and Hawkeye's just sitting in the back. Of course, he's reaching for his weapons. He's looking for everything, and Hawkeye's already taken it all. And Hawkeye's just telling him, look, you got to get her to back off of Ronin. You can make her see clearly, like, this is not going to end well. She's got to back off. She's got to back off. Tell her to drop Ronin. I know that you work for this crime company, the tracksuit mafias. Everything that you guys do is going to fall apart if she goes down this road. So then the guy's like, wait, you care about my position in this organization? You care about the organization? And he doesn't really, but he's telling her that she needs to back off, and he knows that she will listen to him, or if she's going to listen to anybody, there's a good chance it's going to be him. And so that's what he tries to do, is tries to convince her or convince him to tell her to back off. And he says, look, this is the last chance. So things are getting ready to gear up there. Let's see, what else? Then, so he comes back and he meets up with Kate. She says, hey, come over here. I got the arrows. So he goes in, and the LARPers are just hanging out. And she made a deal with the LARPers to where if they helped her, they would do a favor for her, but it wasn't really established. But during this conversation, when they come back to the apartment, it turned into, we'll help you make costumes or something stupid. And Hawkeye was really irritated about that, which makes sense because that LARPing sequence was one of the most irritating things about this show so far. I was just as annoyed by it as Hawkeye was, apparently. There was some funny moments sprinkled throughout that, though, that was pretty funny. The lady cop walks in, and she goes, hey, I got your arrows. And so he's like, all right, great, let's get out of here. And he goes to grab the bag from her, and she's just like, that's not your bag. This is my bag. You didn't bring your own bag? And it's those funny Marvel moments that's what makes these kind of superhero movies distinctly Marvel, I think, is I can always identify some sort of goofy silliness happening that's not a straight out joke, but it's just kind of subtlety. And I thought that was a like I said, that scene as well as a lot of the other scenes just served as a vessel to get us from point A to point B, but they were chocked full of Marvel humor and cool stuff. Like I said, the hanging out in the apartment, the Christmas movie marathon, the Christmas sweaters, which he had a Grumpy Cat sweater on. And I just saw I had this written at the top. One thing interesting was they were drinking out of a mug, or he was drinking out of a mug at that apartment that had written on it, Thanos was right. Like I said, I think that's her aunt's apartment or something. And so that's kind of interesting. I liked that part. Oh, now I get my sound better. Sorry about that. So let's see. Okay, so he gets the bag of arrows. And now, so him and Kate are focused on the whole tracksuit mafia thing, trying to keep her safe. Now this watch thing has come up because his wife gets back to him and says, oh, hey, I was able to trace the watch. It did survive the Avengers compound disaster, and here it is. It's at this apartment. So he says, I'm going to go get it. Kate Bishop is like, no, we're a team. I'll come with you. So he's like, all right, whatever. He brings her along. They're kind of scoping out the apartment. They're on a building across the street because it's on like a third floor or something like that. And he's looking through binoculars, and this I've seen a lot of times, but it didn't bother me because it was kind of funny. This happened with Peter Quill in Infinity War. It's happened a few times throughout the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but one person will be giving a plan, and then as they get done telling that plan, they look and they realize that the person they were talking to has already gone and began to do their own thing. And that fits so perfectly with this character that's been set up in Kate Bishop, so it didn't bother me, even though it was kind of an old trope. He's talking, okay, we're going to have to rappel down, we'll go in this window, everything like that, and she's just gone. She's already just walking across the street, which is funny in its own right because she's in her outfit and she's got her bow and arrow. And she's like, I know how to get into this building. And so she sees this old dude walking in and just offers to grab his groceries for him and help him up. And they got the earpieces in, right? And so he's like, come on, what are you doing? Stop, get out of there, get out of there. And so she starts saying something to him. And the guy she's in the elevator with, helping him bring his groceries up, he's like, sorry, what was that? And she's like, I'm not talking to you. He's like, okay. And she's like, I was talking to an Avenger. He's in my ear. And that was just something that she would have said anyways because she's a goofy character. But the fact that this guy doesn't know that, plus she has a bow and arrow and this weird outfit, and he's like, okay, I'll take my groceries now. And he tries to just get away from her, which was hilarious. And that worked because now she got in the building and she ditched her way of getting in there. So her plan went a lot easier than what Hawkeye was planning on doing. So she goes to the door, she picks a lock, she gets into the apartment right away. Hawkeye's looking still, he's still casing it for her, and she goes, all right, he's like, all right, you look good, go ahead and go on in. So she goes on in, he's like, all right, do you see anything? She's like, nope. And then all of a sudden these lights start flashing on the wall, these strobe lights, and so she starts shooting arrows at him, the jello ones, I can't remember what those were called, and he goes, well, what are you doing? And she's like, I don't know. There's something on the wall in here. The light's flashing. And he's just like, what the fuck? All right, look for the watch. And at this point, she didn't even know what she was looking for. So he goes, all right, grab the watch. She's like, oh, okay, I found it. And then he goes, wait, you need to get out of there right now. Oh, yeah, because she's looking at the watch, and she finds a note next to it that has all this information written down about his family. She's like, dude, I got your watch, but they're taking notes on your family. It had like his son's age and his daughter's age and his wife's name and everything like that. And so he's like, oh my God, you got to get out of there right now. Those lights flashing on the wall is a silent alarm for blind people, or not blind people, Jesus, for deaf people, because they can't hear somebody coming into their apartment. So these lights just start going off, and that's their way of knowing that they have an intruder. And so he goes, you need to get out of there right now. Then all of a sudden he starts getting attacked. He goes, that's Maya's apartment, because, connected 2 and 2 right away. Ah, shit, that's a deaf person's apartment. We know one deaf person that's been trying to kill us. So then all of a sudden he starts getting attacked. You hear him on the walkie, it's not a walkie, on the radio, you hear him going, get out of there, and he's in a scuffle. And then she starts getting in a fight, and because Maya's right there, she starts trying to kill her, and then she goes, Maya's here, and Hawkeye's like, I know, and she goes, no, she's here right now, she's trying to kill me. And then Hawkeye goes, wait, who am I fighting then? And that was the point that I knew it was Yelena. And like I said, big spoilers here, I figured that out right away, just because I'll get back to that. But I had a feeling she was coming into this show because they basically told us that she was. But anyway, so they start fighting. There's two separate fights going on. He goes, "You need to get out of there." And so he throws a zip line, or shoots a zip line over to her. She escapes from Maya because they're tussling. She tries to slide across, and then the most slapsticky thing happened in the middle of this crazy action sequence where we have two different fights going on. She gets halfway across the zip line and just stops because she didn't have enough momentum. That's this. I think I've seen that slapstick in like a Grown Ups or something. It's not fresh, but it worked in the moment. It was still funny. It's like I said, it's just one of those Marvel flavor sprinkles that they kind of sprinkle throughout the whole thing. The humor in it's pretty well placed, and that was a funny moment. Maya comes on the zip line after her, or I think Clint grabbed it or something, got it to shake, so she got more momentum. Then Maya followed her. Next thing you know, there's everybody's fighting each other basically. Kate and Jeremy Renner, Kate and Hawkeye are the only two people on the same team. Because Maya is trying to kill both of them, plus now she's trying to kill Yelena, who nobody knows who that is at this point. She just knows it's some random person. And Yelena starts throwing out the red taser things, and so if you didn't get it at that point, if you really needed the reveal at the end when her mask comes off, then I don't think you're paying that much attention. But anyways, at that point, a good fight that was happening. At one point, Kate ends up flying off the roof, and Hawkeye thinks that he lost her at that point because she just goes flying. But luckily, she's still attached to what she used to rappel out of there or something. I can't remember how she's hooked up, but she's saved. And so he just cuts her down and says, "Go, run." Like, he doesn't try to pull her back up. He wants to get her far away from this situation. Then she doesn't. She comes back up, and this fight's still going on. Hawkeye versus Yelena, Yelena versus Maya, Maya versus Hawkeye. Like, everybody's fighting. She gets back involved with it. And then she tases Maya. Maya goes down. Let's see. That's basically how that fight happens. She ends up... I can't remember what happened to Maya now that I'm thinking about it. If she's down from the taser or if she retreated. She might have retreated. But anyway, she has... Kate now has Yelena at point blank range with the bow and arrow. And so... And the mask comes off. And so she ends up bailing. She doesn't kill Hawkeye, which she was clearly there to do in that moment. Which I was like, you could have still killed him. But she did have a gun that got knocked away from her. And I think it was Maya's gun. No, I think she brought the gun. I don't know. It was all kind of crazy. I'll have to watch it again. I'm just rewatching this whole show every week. That's what's great about these miniseries. But anyways, then she goes... Maya and Yelena are now gone. Kate goes, "Who the hell was that?" And Jeremy Renner is just like, "All right, we're done. This is not happening anymore. We have someone hired a Black Widow assassin to come after us." Because I don't think he knows who that is, but he knows it's a Black Widow. I would assume he probably knows who that is. But he thinks that she was there hired by somebody, where I'm of the opinion, because of the end of Black Widow, that she's there to get vengeance for Natasha. She wasn't necessarily hired by anybody. I might be wrong about that. But anyways, that's where the episode ends, was he saying, "This is way too dangerous now. Shit has got real. We're done. Get out of here." And that was the episode. That's how it ended. Like I said, very exciting ending, but most of the episode was just kind of fluff. Not that it was bad. Fluff's good. I like fluff for the most part. It's better in a series that you can binge. That's the crappy part about them going back to the traditional model of doing one a week. But it does help build momentum, and I'm glad that there was the big climactic fight at the end and the reveal, because it helps you get anticipated for next week. And this is building, I think, probably better than WandaVision did, because the first couple episodes of WandaVision were not received well generally. And I didn't really get it either. I didn't think it was terrible. I just thought it was weird. If you go back now and you rewatch that whole show, then it makes sense. It's a perfect show to binge. But when you have to wait a week in between episodes, it's kind of hard to get into if you don't know what's going on. This show doesn't have that problem, because this felt like a Marvel movie from the jump. I mean, I'll talk about I'll talk about one thing first, which I know nothing about, so I just want to mention it. The people are talking about the watch. What's the deal with the Rolex? Does this now have anything to do with Kingpin or anything like this? Apparently, in the comic book, Mockingbird was Hawkeye's wife, who was at one point involved in S.H.I.E.L.D., and so that's a speculation, is that she might have been not just the civilian person that was married to a super spy, the way they made her seem of Age of Ultron. She might actually have her own past as a spy, and this watch holds proof to that, or something to that effect. And I hope that that's not the case, because I liked the idea of this just civilian random person being married to Hawkeye, a superhero who saved the world alongside the Hulk and Iron Man. I thought that was cool, but if they go, I'm sure they'll spin it, and so they'll end up making it cool. But yeah, that's the one thing I wanted to mention that everybody's talking about, because I'm not as versed on the comic, so I can't BS well enough to try to make my way through a conversation about why she is Mockingbird or why she isn't, or why Wilson Fisk is involved or why he isn't. But it's still fun to watch. So I'll give a quick, because like I said, I haven't talked about this. So here's just my quick thoughts on the show overall. 4 episodes in now, we got 2 more. And I'm not rating it as a whole show as of yet, but I will say that last week's episode was, I think, and I've thought about it a lot, so I spend my time thinking on. I think last week's episode, and like I said, all the episodes are good, so the series will end and it'll be in good standing, but last week's episode as a standalone thing might have been my favorite thing since Far From Home. I was thinking that was the best Marvel since Endgame, and then I'm like, oh wait, no, Far From Home came out after Endgame too, and that was awesome. That has yet to be beat, but I think it will with Spider-Man No Way Home. But anyways, we've had Shang-Chi, WandaVision, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Black Widow, Loki, The Eternals, and What If. And What If doesn't really count, I don't think, when we're talking about the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I haven't watched it, so that doesn't make my rankings, nor does Eternals. But I will say that Far From Home, obviously the best post-Endgame thing, I think, in my opinion. Second to that, if I'm not talking about Hawkeye, because I want to watch the whole show and see where it ends up, I think it'll be number 2. But as of right now, WandaVision's at number 2, because that was just a unique experience watching that show. I hadn't seen anything like that before, plus the tie into the universe. The whole lore that set up and explored was just interesting to me. And so I loved it. And like I said, that one was a little bit hard to get into, but once you got through the whole thing, it made it a whole lot easier, and the finished product was amazing on that. Plus, it sets up a lot of stuff. 3 is Shang-Chi. I thought that was a great movie, a return to form for Marvel. Not that it ever fell apart. Black Widow just felt a little different. Well, I guess it's not that it felt different. It's just this is an actual new chapter. Obviously, Black Widow's a flashback movie because Black Widow's currently dead in the universe. So I guess just it's not. It's also a character we've seen before. I guess that's why I like Shang-Chi so good, because it's like, oh, cool, we got another character, another new story. It kept Marvel going. Although, parallel with that, and I think it was the last episode, I don't know, whichever episode showed Maya's origin story at the beginning in the flashback, parallel that and Shang-Chi. One of the only complaints I had about that was the really shitty, stupid fight scene that opened the movie, which was like one of the stupidest things I've ever seen. I was really worried about the movie after it opened like that, but then as it went forward, it was awesome. All right, I had a good time with that. Same thing when they had showing her in like kids taekwondo class. I know, it's hard to pick on kid actors because they're kids, but come on, that was terrible. I've seen kids fight in movies before. But anyways, oh, what do we got here? What's up, Sir John? Hey, anyway, so yeah. Oh, and the other parallel between Shang-Chi and this, although this did it a whole lot better, I thought, was the sidekick chick. They've had a few of those throughout the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and I think Kat Dennings has her moments. She was in WandaVision too, although she wasn't as much the sidekick in there, I didn't feel like, even though she was. For some reason, she's felt like a more standalone character because she wasn't specifically right along somebody. She was actually kind of leading the charge on some of the things. She's a sidekick chick, and then we had Awkwafina, who a lot of people hated, and I didn't mind, but she did get a little annoying throughout it. Kate Bishop is that character in this show, even though she's also kind of, I would just consider it a co-lead, but her wittiness and just the relationship between those two and just the goofball kind of thing that these sidekick chick characters seem to have, I just thought was awesome. And like I said, it works a lot better than some of the other ones have. Sorry, I got some... Trying to read my shit here. Sorry, guys. I'll keep talking until it pops up, and then I'll get back to it. One of the other big complaints I've been hearing about this show was the name. Why does this have so much to do with... Okay. Thoughts on Hawkeye's TV? Did he find that shit in the garbage? Oh, you talking about the apartment? Like I said, I can't remember. I thought that apartment was somewhere that Kate Bishop had. I guess I'll have to go back and watch. Sorry, I'm waiting for him to pop up down here because I can't see. I liked Awkwafina. I didn't like Shang's mother or Rhea in The Last Dragon. Oh, yeah. Yeah, like I said, it's hard to nail those characters because if you can do it, it's fantastic. But other times it just kind of comes off annoying. But yeah, I think that TV was found in the garbage. But back to what I was saying, one of the other things that people were saying was, why would they call it, like, it sucks because it's not even about Hawkeye. Like, this should be Hawkeye's story. And I think they pitched it from the beginning. We knew that we weren't going to get a Hawkeye origin story, that this was going to take place post-Endgame. But nonetheless, you should know that Marvel's not the best with their titles. I mean, Age of Ultron took place within like a week. It wasn't an age. And Captain America Civil War definitely should have just been Avengers Civil War. They're not the best with their titles. So I don't know. I guess you could go either way on that, but having a misleading name or a bad title, I don't think takes away from the show itself. So people that are using that as their criticism, I don't really understand. Another funny note I had was, I can't believe that Tony Stark never invented any crazy kind of hearing aid. That was kind of interesting and funny to me. And yeah, I think that's all I got, guys. Or guy who's watching, Sir John. Thanks for commenting too, man. Been going for about 40 minutes here. I think I'm going to wrap it up and get to bed. But yeah, great episode. I'll repeat it again, even though I'm getting repetitive at this point. I'll just, to finish it off, I thought that this was a great episode as for the purpose of getting us from one point to another. It didn't add a whole lot, I felt. I felt like there were some things that were missed. I mean, not missed, but if you're just wanting to see where the story goes, you can watch the last 5 minutes or whenever the rooftop fight begins. More like Avengers sparring. Or more like Avengers civil sparring. Yeah, I get that. But anyways, with this, it was more like, if you're just wanting to see where the story goes, watch the last 5 minutes. The majority of the episode was just kind of filler. But like I said, that's not always bad because it helps build the relationships of these characters and helps us to care about them more, I think. So all in all, I think this is still on track to be better than WandaVision. Definitely, though, going to be one of the best post Endgame things that has come from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Like I said, Falcon and the Winter Soldier was awesome, but I definitely have my criticisms about that. WandaVision was awesome, but it was a little bit hard to get into at the beginning. Shang-Chi was awesome. Black Widow was also awesome. So, yeah, I guess that'll do it. Thanks for watching. One guy who's watching it live, thanks for commenting. This audio will be available on Anchor. Also, I'll probably be back doing another Midnight Movie Talk stream tomorrow. Thank you. Doing another Midnight Movie Talk stream tomorrow. I'll probably let this resonate a little more, and I'll talk a little, and I'll probably, if I come up with any other thoughts on Hawkeye, I'll bring it up then too. But if there's any movie news or anything like that that comes out, then we'll talk about that. Also, tomorrow, probably around noon, I'll have a concert show coming out. I was going to do one tonight, but I wanted to get a little bit of sleep before I woke up to watch this and do this video. So the concert show is going to be coming out tomorrow, probably at noon. I think I'm going to do it live. A lot of big tours have been announced. A lot of big things have happened in the world of concerts. And that's the other show, youtube.com/concert addiction. So check that one out too. And like I said, tomorrow Midnight Movie Talk, tomorrow Concert Talk, and Hawkeye Episode 4 was fantastic. Thanks. Bye.